Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3's Black Ice 10.41. But before we get into that, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and of course hit that like button, and I like you posting any comments you want below. I do read everything and try to respond to most. Okay, we have a few things that we haven't been paying enough attention to. Okay, form the 3rd Panzer Corps. Okay, sounds like a good thing. We'll take that. And let's do, now that we have most of the terrain out there, and sort of what I was waiting for, because upgrade the rail. Because as you can see, infrastructure. Here, this is going to be upgrade rail, infrastructure gain level, any, all, Ukraine. So we have most of what Ukraine is, so I wanted to wait until we had a lot of these. And so until December 42, so almost basically 6 months there, 15% ICs. But we will move up in infrastructure, or we should. Yeah, I think it's instantaneous. So let's click out and then click back. Yeah, you can see a lot more yellow going through there. So that will be a lot more supplies flowing. Hello, Beam Slam. Good to have you here, my friend. And let's also see, okay, Crimea region, we got, well, basically the Crimea now. So let's upgrade that. That's only 2%, but so that's nicer. So we're going from that to that. So yellow down into here and just everywhere a little better. Now, do we want... I don't know if we want to do the Baltics yet. But we will hit this Riga Express, because that should just be an effect and not... yeah, we get... We'll do that right now. And Aries here, very good. How you doing, my friend? Any other ones I want to do right now? No. But that should all mean better flowing supplies and actually better flowing strategic redeployments. Yep, getting the trains rolling. Yep, gang's all here now. Yeah, so let's get up there. Let's get up to the speed that I want to play at. And then you push me out of Grozny again. Are they still, it's, no, yeah. Oh. Why are we letting the Soviets move around in anywhere in here? Yes, we got our pocket bridgehead there. Right. That way we'll get more supply throughput, generally speaking. Okay, steel electro welding technology. Some of those technologies are specifically helping with going through development of ships. Some allow you to progress ahead with armor technologies. I'm not sure which are which. Okay, immediate fuel tank research. Sounds like a winner. An artillery unit command and control advance. Right, okay, well. And what we're going to do here is lock that down, unlock espionage, unlock this, because I want a few more spies, so we're pushing you pretty far ahead on most research. So we'll try to get a pool of spies up there. Not that we're doing a lot with them, but okay, you join in the crushing of the pocket. You go there to make sure the pocket isn't open. And you also come in on the crushing of the pocket. The Soviets are putting up, yeah, they're putting up a good fight, especially up here in the north. We're actually being pushed back. I had made it up to basically here, and they're pushing me back now. And so far we've not gotten across here, and we are exhausting our divisions or shattering our divisions, and haven't gotten to Murmansk. Okay, it was its last we looked at 16 point something organization. Now it's at 11. Still worried about all these Soviet subs. Gotta get this port back. Yeah. Get across that one. Okay, sometimes you just need to keep pushing almost no matter what. Or you're doomed, but we may be doomed anyways. Ah, go that way. Here, your division. They're at Murmansk area. Yes, you may have metal. You're doing reasonably well, though this is going to be a bit of a problem there. I pushed out too far and didn't get support. Okay, if I were to support the attack with you, would that help? These guys are defending here. Hey, Paul! Good to have you here live. Yeah, that pocket is crushed. These guys probably stop moving for lack of supplies or something. I don't know. Otherwise, I don't know why. They would have. Yeah, they'll hold. Hopefully they'll hold. These guys will hold down here and here. Yeah, Finland could use more people. We're gonna get some of these units that had shattered back up there. Just been a lot of Soviet operations that I've been a bit. Now they had come into here, the Soviets, these two provinces, and the Finns have pushed them back. But yeah, let's see, we got, okay, that's what we'll do. Let's grab this and this. And we're going to grab just the liners, I think, because they're going to be the fastest. And they're going to come over here to rebase to there. Somebody stole our blueprints because we don't have enough spies. Hopefully it was a friendly steal. A rat in the kitchen, but it was not welcome. Oh, well, that's what you're supposed to have cats for, to deal with the rats in the kitchen. They're supposed to help with those things. Or didn't your rat get the memo? Or your cat get the memo? You get across here. Okay, you get attacked there with their support and their support. Want to cut off those and kill them. Haven't used the upgrade event. Okay, yeah, the infrastructure, we did, some of them. So we do have some infrastructure here. I've not done the Baltics yet because we don't control up there. I wanted to wait until I control, because I'm not absolutely sure if it affects the areas we control or we don't. I think it's just what we control. I think the Murmansk is not going to work out well. But I don't want to give up on it. Are they still, yeah, they're still controlling it. Well, maybe I just need to move them via ship. Get them over to there via ship and move them out. But we get never enough ships. Yes, finally got the marshes all cut off. So we're working there. Yeah, supply is fair. It's mostly fuel problems that I'm having, not so much supply problems. Quite honestly, it's been pretty good that way. Yeah, kill those guards and NKVD units. Okay, finally one down here with some of these anti-partisan operations. Killed some more subs. Okay, you guys come in here. Got that. Fortunately, we keep taking out some of these pockets, so that is good because there's a lot of forces in them. Infantry division shatters here. Okay, well. Get them back home, or get back to the front. I guess they are at home. Okay, good. Pushing. Pushing. Now it's still just June. Okay, keep in mind that this is June. Now it's 42 because we started the war with the Soviets in 42 and not 41. And so we're all the way into there. And the only place that's, well, this is, I mean, true, this is, we're running out of steam here, most assuredly. We've, you know, we're getting units up here. Well, where your HQ? You're way too far back. Get up here to the front. So, yeah, we, to some degree, we've run out of steam down here. We're also not pushing fast towards Moscow at the moment, and we've definitely been pushed back a bit here south of Leningrad. And fortunately, although there is a big Soviet push into Finland, they haven't taken any victory provinces, so it hasn't pushed the Finns to decide to surrender or anything like that. But we have down here, so that is a good bonus, a good bonus. And of course we have a front down here that we're holding just fine on. The Luftwaffe is doing very well, holding off massive Soviet forces with their paratroopers. Oh, good. More off the Bulgarian coast. Okay, so here in the Black Sea, we took out some of their subs. Another Gebergs division shatters, and I think that's another one from up in the Murmansk area. Oh, why did, oh, you're attached out to this command HQ for some reason. Okay, well. That isn't the best idea. Let's attach you to... Well, maybe because we don't have room in Army Group North. Well, we'll attach it straight to there. We'll give him another general. Right, do we have a winter specialist here since they're in the north? It doesn't look like one good enough. We'll give him this guy. Stockhausen. Yeah, we're trying to do a supply out there. Yeah, that's probably part of it, Beam Slam. There's a lot of units here, and some of it is just the buffs that the Soviets get. Okay, well, they're down to 7%, but you guys aren't going to make it. Now that would be a major defeat, yes. So we've not been able to get up there to cut off their supply, get ourselves a better supply yet. Like I say, there's a lot of buffs for the Soviet Union in this because, yeah, this is the Soviets, and yes, it is 42 and not 41. That does matter. And it may be dooming this whole exercise. They're having to fall back. These guys will push up. They're still not getting out. I don't... Oh, that's close. Okay, you move forward to there. Keep moving up. Since you're almost there, you can move forward too. And you guys will attack across the water here since the Hungarians are not doing much. Okay, pause. Okay, so self-propelled artillery brigades. Hello, Captain Kinky Walrus. How you doing? Funny name. Self-propelled artillery brigades. Yes, and it's grayed out. Okay, you keep moving to the front. Okay, well, yeah. I don't know how this appears to the viewer, but I am playing actually rather quickly. Because this is it should sort of be a rather slow played game if you're going to manage it, which is, I think, the only real good way to do this. And I just like doing it too. Growing up playing, board games, you're just used to it. It's what you sort of enjoy, but you get, instead of having to manage it all on your own, like rolling all the dice and all that stuff, you have the computer do it. Yeah, we're facing a pretty hefty Soviet offensive down here. Okay, 2 tank divisions attacking there. How many tank brigades? What's that? 7 there, plus 2 in reserve attacking here. And, oh, wow, 6 more tank brigades attacking there. Yeah, that's good. If you do send Marines to Finland, you can trade a pincer attack. Yeah, I don't know that we're going to be able to. There's enough Soviet ships and whatever. I'm just going to run them probably into here and march them up once we get these guys over here. Okay, so because they're not very good shape. Okay, you guys get on. Was that the right unit? I don't know. Yes. Okay, well, yeah, currently reinforcing. Let's just, well, I guess I have to rebase it to there. Yeah, well, we're not doing anything like naval invasion of Leningrad. Learn from my mistakes. Since I won't, but maybe you will. Okay, you're gonna come, hopefully cut that off. You advance this way, you advance this way. Yeah, it's really this, I mean, like I say, I'm playing this fast for the series, but really should be played much slower to manage all of these units. Something of a coherent manner. Waiting for the southern advance on Stalingrad from Baku. It should unhinge the Soviet. Oops. Spoke too soon. Yes, the AI. Yeah, we have. I am not sure if we had taken all of these forces, and there's a lot of, as you can just see, I just highlighted, we just got some of these forces here. If all of these armored forces are, you can see from some of the progression here, are veterans of the North Africa campaign and through here and come up here. Most, not some of the stuff has been shipped in through Batumi here, but a lot of it came up through here. So I'm thinking, had all these been put into, if some of these are specifically forces that were like here specifically spawned as part of North Africa, but had they been all shipped to the Eastern Front, the traditional Eastern Front, we could just imagine all of these forces here that we have here added to this Leningrad front. I think we'd be at the gates of Leningrad right now. Don't know if we would have taken it, because it's a bit of a bitch in here. All foresty. This is terrible to attack through the swamps, and of course Leningrad is fortress province pretty heavily. So we would have been much stronger there. Now, of course, we could have equally likely have divided the force, some to Leningrad, some to sort of the central front, and some out here. And so all of these would be doing a little bit better. But then all of these forces here, let's sort of zoom to this, best intel looking. Well, these are tank brigades. The Soviets are probably over strength. And there's probably a bunch more because of buffs for the AI than what really would happen here. When you see a tank brigade, and sometimes you think more regiment. When you see a division for the Soviets, think more brigade. They have lots of forces. Because of what the several things all sort of come into it. It goes back to the Russian Revolution and that they destroyed their officer class. Because you have to realize almost every German general, I should say, was a veteran of World War I and an officer of World War I. Let's think of like Kesselring, who Luftwaffe general, right? Who ends up commanding in Italy, and before that, when Rommel is commanding in North Africa, his commander is Kesselring, because he's commanding the German forces in the Mediterranean. Now, he isn't, other than sort of passing on directives or getting whatever, he isn't really commanding Rommel, and of course Rommel is ignoring a lot of his orders. And part of the reason not because we can see it already happening. Let me just save this here, be safe. So I'm going to talk a little bit here. Hope it's interesting. We can already see Rommel's ability to move forces rapidly and be unexpected, and be sort of the desert fox before be the fox before you add the desert fox to it, if you will. But one of the things that makes Rommel the desert fox is because in Malta they have one of the ultra stations with one of the decoding plants to decode what is being sent by the Germans, because I don't know how good they are at Italian decoding, but they're definitely very good at the German radio traffic. I forget whether it was the Luftwaffe or the Navy would send out their orders over the radio and their replies over the telephone in France or something like that. So Britain was only getting like half the picture. But either way, they're getting all of the message traffic, because there is no basic telephone traffic. Because a lot of the orders that are being sent over through the ultra stuff are going over landlines, and of course, fundamentally, the British have no access to that. They only get radio information. One of the listening posts is in Malta, and they have a full mini Bletchley Park decoding whatever here, and they're decoding that out and then sending out the information to Cairo, or is it Alexandria? I don't know, wherever the high command is. And it wasn't until Montgomery takes over command in the desert here, and that's him setting up the El Alamein defensive lines. Does the general commanding the forces even know that the British have the ultra stuff coming in? So I know I'm jumping around a bit here. So before, at times, they were, being sent out, oh, be prepared for this. And how good are the spies? What do they know? What does Cairo or Alexandria or whatever know? When, they're all up in here. Well, it's because they're getting the ultra stuff, but the general in command of the Western Desert Force doesn't even know that ultra exists, let alone that they're getting ultra back here, the decrypts and then whatever they're sending up to the front. They only let the field commander know when it's Montgomery. And for multiple reasons, I don't know entirely. Mostly that just, okay, Sergeant Z-Dog, thanks so much for stopping by. Thank you. Have a good stream. If you guys prefer Battle Sector, great game. You can go catch that. And of course, you can catch this later on YouTube if you want. But so it will be up there. So one of the things that makes Rommel the Desert Fox is that the British are listening to the code, the information going back and forth, his orders, and then passing that along as if it were sort of spies or other sorts of means of getting it to them. And so they're really sure that what Rommel's going to do. And then he doesn't do it. And so they prepare prepare to defend from one of his attacks, or if they know he's going to defend some ridge or whatever, and they're going to decide to swing around his defenses or something. Rommel's already deciding to retreat because he knows he can't hold on. So he's defying orders. So that's one of the things that messes with, Rommel or the British in dealing with Rommel here. And so that's an important element here. Now, I'm trying to remember. Trying to think back. Okay. Looking at Kesselring, he's commanding here. Well, and he's a Luftwaffe general, if you will. But he was an artillery general, or not general, an artillery officer in the army in the First World War. So he is perfectly capable, trained, and if he just sort of basically maintained, because he's high level commander, not a tactical commander, perfectly trained, and probably an artillery general is maybe the best type of general you want on a defensive plan along the Italian peninsula here. And so yeah, you see him smiling Albert with in his Luftwaffe uniform, but he's already a fully trained German officer from and experienced from World War One. So how is the air war going? Well, we can check that out in a moment. Niagara. So that, yeah, most of the German general class, by the time you're getting, in World War II, is veteran officers. Leto von Borbeck, and I always sort of mess his name up, the great general who commanded down in Tanganyika. Well, was he too old? Why isn't he in World War II? Well, he was. But he was unpopular. Well, he hated Nazis, I think would be a good thing. And so the Nazis knew it, but he was way too popular to do anything else. So he was given a desk job, theoretically, back in Berlin that I think he never really showed up for. But I have at least one photo of him visiting, I forget who, one of the German generals at the front, and he's still wearing his sort of it's not quite what they wore when they were in Tanganyika, but sort of the Tanganyika veterans type uniform, touring around. But he's the same age as many of the other famous German generals of this war. So he isn't like too old or out of health. He's just a great general that's been sidelined because of his politics. At one point, he was asked by the Nazis. I don't know if by Hitler personally, but not in person, I don't believe, but was requested to be the ambassador to Britain, and basically said hell no, or words to that effect. And yeah, he wasn't going to do that, and he wasn't going to support the Nazi regime. So that is why he isn't in World War One. But most of the German generals are in World War One. Well, what happens to most of the Russian officer class? The Russian Revolution and the Russian Civil War. Sure, some of the officer class, probably not too many high up aristocrats, just because I would suspect even if they decide to turn their coats and be on the revolution side, the revolution isn't going to accept them. But a fair number of the sort of people with sort of middle social backgrounds, you're not going to find people with, low-level social backgrounds, but middling sort of social backgrounds. A bunch of them do sort of go, yeah, we're in the revolution. The systems suck. We're joining this new revolution and whatnot. And so there's a fair number of them that do, but a great massive bulk of them don't. So you've already just lost all of that professional class in Russia. However good or bad it was Russia's professional military class. And however bad you may think it was in fighting the Germans, got to remember, they did moderately well not that long before World War One, fighting the Japanese out here in the Russo-Japanese War. And I would posit the only reason Japan did as well as it did, and it was having a very modernizing army at the time, is it just way out on the periphery of the Russian Empire and not in the core. but I think they did rather well. And they took a lot of that experience and sort of ready for World War One when it came. And it just really, there are social divide issues. Officers need to be able to connect with their men. But I know, like a good friend of mine, I've had some reserve officer training way back in college, but never been in the Army. So take this for what you will. But it's still my analysis of it, and I've had some good friends. I had one good friend who really admired the Israeli system, in which everybody in the Israeli military joins as a private, and those that work their way up to high command work their way up. I think that is, now it sort of works for Israel, but Israel's a special case. It's a small nation. It's a sort of special thing. But I kept trying to explain to him, because he was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, and I think a rather good one. Saw some active duty in the Middle East. This was before, Desert Storm 1, first Gulf War, but he had seen some active duty in the Middle East. I kept trying to explain to him, look, you're a sergeant. And he had very low respect for most officers in the Marine Corps. Because most of the ones that he was dealing with were junior officers. And he knew the job better. I go, yeah, the officer is there to learn how to do his job as a lieutenant and sort of convey the commands from higher authority down to the platoon leader, that's the lieutenant. Attack this hill or whatever. And he's supposed to sort of have the basics to know it. But the sergeant, who has long experience in there, is the one that's supposed to be actually executing and running that show. He is just there as sort of a training experience. It's once you sort of go to at least captain, at least company commander, and then battalion commander, that's where it really starts to count. And that is, you don't want old men doing that. You don't want old men being majors, that started out as private so-and-so and worked their way up. And sure, maybe identifying officer potential early on, and I'll get to some of the chat in a minute, and do that kind of thing. And this all gets into this Soviet situation. So you don't want old men to be your major. Generals, one thing, because, but you don't want your battalion commanders to be too old. And so, but in most and if you look back in the 18th century, which I've done a lot of reading, there sort of needs to be a certain level of social distancing between officers and NC and your enlisted men. Because, and this is what I think, and I won't go there for the moment, but officers' job is to kill their men. I know that sounds crazy or wacky, but it really is. It's to get their men killed, but as few as possible to achieve the objective. They use their men up, okay? They have casualties, whether it's at the platoon, the company, the battalion, regiment, brigade, whatever. They use their men up. They're going to get their men killed. Now, it comes down to use, and they often don't even want to admit this, in various armies. Why are you heading in still? I don't know. And you want them to, so you don't want them too connected to the men, to be too traumatized from Sergeant Baker, who just got killed, or Private Smith, who just got his head blown off, to not continue to do your job. You've got to do your job, no matter the casualties around you. Whether your job is to get the hell off this hill because it's a stupid move to attack the hill, or, hey, we just keep pushing and we've got this hill and we save the situation, not just for our platoon, but for the whole company, the whole battalion, the whole whatever. And we end up, although killing a few more of the platoon members, you save a lot of other guys. it ultimately you want to, again, do it with as few losses as possible. And so you need a certain amount of social distancing with it. And traditionally it's come from social class differences. And so you gotta use that up. And so that's an important element, but you don't have the sort of perspective or the training of that so well within the Soviet system, again, because their officers, are gone. They, the old imperial officers may have been too socially distanced from the men. During the Napoleonic Wars, when they were, doing some, battalion formations, and some of the Italian officers down in, this region, the Neapolitan or the Kingdom of Two Sicilies or whatever, had trouble finding their company. The officers did, because they couldn't recognize any, because they never bothered to show up. They got their officers' commission, and they never showed up. And so they couldn't even find their own unit. When everybody's lined up on a parade, and then the officer's supposed to go, where's 3rd platoon? Where's 2nd company? Whatever. They couldn't even identify it, and they had to have somebody tell them where their unit is, because they did not even recognize who the sergeants were, who anything was. So you can be too socially distanced. Obviously, that's a sort of extreme case. But from a real, supposedly professional military, the Russian imperial officer system is verging not on that extreme, but verging on being too disconnected. And that's part of the reason why I think the Russian Revolution is so successful within the Russian army. But with all of that being said, you lose your Russian, you lose all the experience, or the great bulk of the experienced officers in the Russian army. One, we're a long time to get there. Two, you get a new group of leadership coming out of the Russian Revolution and the ongoing civil war after it to, move forward, absolutely. And they try to rebuild the Russian officer class. Well, okay, I don't know if that's going along well or poorly or whatever, but it's going along as well as it is. But it is also saddled with commissars, which show up during the revolution and continue all the way through. I presume all the way through to the end of the Soviet Union, but I'm not absolutely sure on that. People's commissars, or maybe by other names. And these are political officers, and there's similar sorts of personnel are shown up in the French Revolutionary Army, so they go way back. And this is because the political leadership does not trust the military leadership. So you get watchdogs that maybe they can kill you on the spot, depending on time and place, to, if they can't quite have the authority and presence to do that, they can at least report you and have you arrested, and you're going to the gulag system, or being shot on the spot or whatever. Depends on what they're doing. So you have this crippled command structure already going on through the Russian Revolution, through the Civil War, and then 3 added on top of that, you have the purges that Stalin does. Stalin is afraid of his army. He's afraid of a coup. Whether they think they're going to support Trotsky, or whether they just think, they may think themselves the next Caesar, the next leader, the military leader, take over. Why have the civilian leadership of the revolution? Let's just have a military one. So he fears them. So he takes them out. And so now, because, like, I'll tell you, to the best of my knowledge, German officers who fail, German officers who are considered unreliable politically or whatever, they're in no life-threatening danger, basically. I don't think they feel any of this life-threatening danger. Again, I brought up in, Vorbeck, the veteran from World War One. He's sidelined through this whole thing and perfectly free to move around. And I'm sure the SS is paying attention to him. Until basically the July plot to assassinate Hitler fails, and then, yes, Rommel's killed and others are killed, some brutally hung and tortured and whatnot. And it really isn't, and then others locked up in prisoners of war camps, or concentration camps, and then maybe killed some officers, before they're liberated and whatnot. So, yeah, it's until that sort of collapsing of the National Socialist system. And then you do get SS running around just on their own, killing officers for defeatism, as they're retreating the units. And now SS are starting to act like political commissars over the regular military and not just their own units. Because, yes, there are all these, I'm trying to find a SD unit here somewhere. There's all these SD type Einsatzkommandos and whatnot, Sonderkommandos and whatever. They're all moving around here, but through most of this campaign, these guys are already marching back home because we got this position and they're not. God, I hate this. Romania. We're going to give deep objectives this time. Tula, Hungary. Yeah. Italy's still there, fine. Astrakhan, also good. Italy. See what the Italians and everyone does with all that. But so mostly, for failure or making, politically inappropriate comments, most of the period, the German officer is only afraid for his job. Where in the Soviet Union, they're afraid for their lives, they're afraid for their families' lives, they're afraid to be put in gulags. There's all kinds of stuff. So this cripples the Soviet command structure. And so, and this all gets back to unit sizes. So at some point in the 30s, I think, or maybe it's 1940 or something, and dealing with I think it is more like 1940, 41, after dealing with what happened, the Winter War. They realize the units are too big. Not that they're too big tactically set up for most nations, but they're too big for their officer corps to handle. They're just not trained well enough to do that. So the Soviets keep, this is a division, because, hey, the more divisions you have, the better. But they shrink them down to like brigade size or whatever. I mean, it's inexact, but it's a generalization. And so they're shrinking all this stuff, all these units down for these less experienced officers and their less experienced commissars standing around behind them with a pistol, basically. And that is why they shrink the size of the units. And that's why I think some of the Guards units are bigger, and now they're formed sort of later, and they're not terribly trusted by Stalin, I don't believe. But, well, Stalin's a paranoid. He doesn't trust anybody. So they're not trusted by Stalin, but just because, it's like water's wet. Kind of thing. So yeah, you get this, and that's why the Soviet forces, when you look at it, no, 2 Soviet divisions versus a German division. Yeah, that's like 2 Soviet brigades or reinforced brigades against a German division. That's about equal. of unit. Okay, now let's look back up and see here. Okay, detective. AI. Yeah, there's a bunch of spawned units going. Who's back up through the chat here? By opening the southern front, you weaken the Soviet across the. Yes. But there are some spawn units when you take certain objectives, like Nagaro was saying. Kesselring got great on the defense in depth. Yeah, and you're very right, Paul. And that is what he understood. I'm not trying to say that Kesselring would have been a bad offensive maneuver officer. He may have been good at that, but I just don't see a situation in which he had that as an option. As a campaign option. Really, it was defense in depth, and that's an artilleryman's type of set piece battle, and he got that very well. And the players outmaneuver the AI. One of the reasons I'm not going in here, I think, is that somewhere around here will trigger a big spawn of units. So I'm rather just coming this way and trying to cut all that off. So yeah, some of them are there, and you can look through the code and see where they pop up. You got distance between men and officers can also be created by other means. Yeah, there's other means in social class, but distance between officers and men, absolutely. There was the tradition, though it wasn't 100% kept, that when you in World War II, and I think in other times, when you had for the U.S. Army, they have officers candidate school. Is when they find, often because they're ballooning up the American Army for World War II. So there's a lot of young sergeants, but when you really find one that you think is officer material, you send them off to, officers school. So generally speaking, he's had some combat experience, as an enlisted man, but you send him off to officers candidate school. The whole Army knows that this guy probably isn't long for the Army after the war is over, meaning he's not going to be a career officer. And he's going to be sent off to do this. Mostly, and the general policy is not to send him back to the unit that he left from. There are exceptions, I believe, but mostly it's send him to other units to be the officer. So he's not formally one of the guys. That is a big thing. And there are other ways to do that than pure social class, but you need to develop that distinction. All I know is that you regard your soldiers and children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Yeah, sounds like we really ruled by fear or trust, and the officers, the latter is much more efficient, especially when things get really. Yeah. Oh, absolutely, Beam Slam. Yes, so close. So close, about 10 away, high annex from getting a 5K subs. I'm looking forward to that. Offensive was fairly effective, so the Russian army was still strong. The only thing that made it fail was the horrible lack of morale. Yeah, okay, Ari. Yeah, Russia, I really, part of it I do think is leadership and social class, and there's a lot of that stuff going on in the Soviet, or not, well, in Russia. But also a massive amount of the problems that Russia was having was lack of industrialization and the scale of the war. If it had been a war with Austria, not with Germany, not with everything else, or a war with Turkey or something like that, Russia could have raised a very large army and maintained that army, including like munitions flowing to the front relatively well. I'm not saying perfectly or anything like that, but relatively well. But fighting the Germans, the Austrians, eventually the Turks, it just is overwhelming to their system. Now, fortunately for them, the Turks are pretty bad shape, and the Austrians are reasonably bad shape. So it's really the Germans that are their main worry. If different, right? Have different. Wonder how many Soviet commissars got frag. Oh, I bet a bunch did. I bet you they knew not to be in certain places at certain times. Because otherwise they would have disappeared as casualties. Great at counterattack and feigning a retreat as well. Yeah. So yeah. Well, I think we're going to end the episode, not the live stream, but the episode here with my little talk and catching up with the chat. So see you next time for even more, yes, more Hearts of Iron.